Once you've got all of it written down, go ahead and glue it into your interactive notebook. Okay, so underneath this in your interactive notebook, we're going to do a couple examples for different ways to find the x and y intercepts. So the equation we're going to be working with is x minus 2y equals 4. X minus 2y equals 4. And we're going to look at 3 different ways to find it. So the first one is from a graph. Sorry, an equation. I'm waiting on this one. From an equation. From an equation, and so we're going to look at first our x intercept. Our x-intercept. And so when we're looking for an x-intercept, if we look up at our notes, it says x-intercepts happen when y is 0. X-intercepts happen when y is 0. So what I'm going to do is look at my equation, and I'm going to rewrite it. And then instead of y, I'm going to plug in 0. Okay? So what's 2 times 0, or negative 2 times 0? 0. So I remember sometimes my teachers would have me like put my thumb over that value, or cross it out, or if you want to write down that it's 0, that's totally fine. I'm just going to cross it out and rewrite it again without that value. So this time I see that x equals 4. So then if we were going to put that as a coordinate, our x value is 4, and our y value that we plugged in was 0. So that's our x-intercept right there. Yes. Yes. For x-intercepts, and then y-intercepts, which we're about to do, we just do the opposite. Okay? So for y-intercepts, we're going to do the exact opposite. So instead of x, just like our notes tell us, y-intercepts happen when x is 0. So instead of the letter x, I'm going to plug in 0. And again, you can just ignore the 0. You can cover it up with your hand. You can cross it out. I like to cross it out. So I'm left with negative 2y is equal to 4. So what's my next step for solving for y? Divide by what? Negative 2. So we're going to divide by negative 2. And we're left with y equals, what's 4 divided by negative 2? Negative 2. So if we were going to write that as a point, what would the x value be for that coordinate? 0. And we know that because we're looking for the y-intercept and it tells us it's 0, and we plugged it in right there for x. Okay? So then what's our y value? Negative 2. Does that sort of make sense? You're just plugging in 0 for the opposite one. So as long as you remember which one it is, you'll be fine. Okay? All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to be able to identify it from a table. So here, we're going to draw a table that looks like this. We got f, x, and f of x, or y, right? They're doing the same thing. And you're going to write this table down. All right, so when we're looking at a table, notice here, when your x coordinate is filled in and your y is 0, that's your x-intercept, right? So when we're looking here, where would my x-intercept be? Where is my y 0? In this table, where is the y or f of x? Remember, they mean the same thing. Where is it 0? Right here, right? You guys see this right here? So that's your x-intercept. Notice it's the same point as right there. It's just a different way they would show you the intercepts. So to find your x-intercept is when your y or f of x is 0. To find your y-intercept, it's when your x is 0, right? So you see how right here your x is 0? So that's your y-intercept right there. So this is just identifying it from a table. So we found an equation, we saw it on a table, and the last thing we'll do after this is looking at a graph. Does this make sense? Basically, if you see a 0 in either coordinate, you know it's either going to be your x-intercept or your y-intercept. If your x has a number in it, that means it's your x-intercept. If your y has a number in it, then you know it's your y-intercept. So the last one, I'm just going to sketch a graph for you. It looks like this. And so remember, if you can make a Y with it, so it looks like this. See how I can make a letter Y? See how I made a Y? So wherever it falls on that line is your Y-intercept, right? And so if this is my Y, I'm finding where it falls on this, and you see it's right here, right? And so remember, down is negative. So I go -1, -2. And so my y-intercept again is 0, -2. So wherever it falls on that line, if I can make a y with it, it's my y-intercept. That means the other one would be my x-intercept, and since it's going to the right, it's positive. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So my x-intercept would be 4 compass here. So it's wherever it falls on the x-axis and wherever it falls on the y-axis. Some of us get confused between negative and positive. Remember, left and down is negative, and right and up is positive. Does that make sense? So we're going to try a few together. Do you guys see this is just your practice for today? And so the first thing you're going to do is I want you to try to find the intercepts from a graph. And so I'll do one with you of each type of problem, and then you'll have time to practice on your own. So you can see the first half is finding it on a graph. The second half is finding it on or graphing it. The third is on a table, and then there's just extra practice. So I'll do one of each. Does everyone have this down? Yes. Cool. All right, so the first thing, and you could probably see it a little better here, is remember, if I can make a y, it's my y-intercept, right? And so I know wherever it falls on this line is my y-intercept. And I can see it falls right there. So that point would be 0, what? 4. Wherever it falls on the x-axis is your x-intercept. So right here, I can see it falls on -2, and -2 is my x-coordinate, 0 would be your y. Some of them, like you see these horizontal and vertical lines right here. See how this one doesn't cross the x-intercept right here? Then that would just be no x-intercept. If it doesn't have a y-intercept, it's no y-intercept. So make sure you look out for that. These two will have one or the other when it's a horizontal or a vertical line. If we go to the next one, I'm going to go to the next one. You're just graphing the intercepts and drawing a line through it. The next one looks something like this. This is not what's on your paper, but I want to go through one together so you know what you're doing. And so all you're doing, I have 5x plus 2y equals -10. And this isn't the same equation that's on your paper. I just want to do one more on the board so you know what you're doing. And so if you want to find your x-intercept, what do we plug in for what? Who can raise your hand and tell me if I'm finding my x-intercept? What am I plugging in for what? 0 in for y. So you're always just plugging in the opposite. And so remember, you should always be finding x if you're looking through x-intercept. So it looks like this. There's also the cover-up method. So see how it's in standard form? See how x and y are on the same side? All you have to do is cover up y and its coefficient and solve. It's the same exact thing, just like how Ms. Thompson was crossing it out. And so you end up getting 5x equals -10. How do you get x by itself? Divide it by 5. And you end up getting x equals -2. So your x-intercept would be -2, 0. So if you know if you're solving for x, it's your x-intercept. If you're solving for y, it's your y-intercept. So right here, I would go to -2 on x and place a little dot. My y-intercept, I'm plugging in 0 for x this time. So I can either cover that up or cross it out. Now you end up getting +2y equals -10. Just be careful. Remember, when it's just a variable, what's the invisible coefficient you put next to it? That 1, right? And don't drop those negatives if you have them. Then how would I get y by itself? Divide by 2. And you end up getting y equals -5. And you know it's your y-intercept because you solved for y. Your y-intercept would be 0, -5. So I go to -5 right here and put a dot. The last thing you do is you just draw a line. It doesn't have to be perfect, so you're just drawing a line through both of them. Obviously, mine's not perfect, but I get the point of what you're trying to do. Does that make sense? Okay. Next one is your tables. So you're just finding the x and y intercept from a table. Remember, if one of them's not there, it's just none. This, you're doing what we just did. They want you to find the x-intercept, the y-intercept, and graph it, just like we just did anyways. Same with right here. And your check for understanding looks like this. It's your third little question on that packet. And so one is if we're giving you an equation and we want you to find the x and y intercept. You're not doing this yet. This will be at the end of class. Here, it's a graph, and they just want you to write the x and y intercepts. So that's what you want to solve by the end of class. Does anyone have any questions? Yeah, sure. So you guys can work on this for the next like 20 minutes.
we have the answer key right up here. So every page that you do, that you get stamped, you can get a brain book. So up here, you can stamp it yourself. The answer key's right in that red binder. So that way you can work at your own pace and also get those brain books. Sound good? Okay. Awesome.